शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वन्निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिबोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः। नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। यश्छन्दसां वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया आस्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासम् शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणगुं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। आप्यायन्तु मम अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत्। अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मे अस्तु। तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मा ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम्। आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य मानीस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः। अनेनाधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रन्नो अपि वातय मनः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तगुंहदेवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः So let's just pronounce the first two mantras. Om ityetadakshara idagum sarvam. Om ityetadaksharam idagum sarvam. Tasya upakhyanam tasya upavyakhyanam bhutam bhavat bhavishyatiti sarvam onkara eva yacchanyattrikalatitam tadapi onkara eva sarvam hi etad brahma ayamatma brahma soyam atma chatushpat. So we saw that the first verse, which is Om ityetad akshara idagum sarvam, is primarily meant to define the name Om. So it is so the first verse is what would be called in the Sanskrit, in the technical lingo of Vedanta, Abhidhana Pradhana. So Abhidhana means a name, and Abhidheya means the vastu indicated by the name. So the first verse is Abhidhana Pradhana. Here, this will be explained in much more detail the rest of the Upanishad, but just to start things off, the first verse is devoted to explaining the name itself, which is Om. Then the second verse goes into the vastu. which is Brahman. What does the Om refer to? It refers to a vastu, means the closest thing in English would be a thing. It's not a thing, but that's the closest thing you can think of, an object in that manner, just like you have a name, like a table, as we saw in the last class. So the Abhidheya is Brahman. So that's why in the second one, the Brahman is here, Omkara is not talked about. Sarvam hi etat Brahma. And then this very interesting equation is given. Ayam Atma Brahma. Ayam Atma Brahma. So just a few words to indicate it before we go to the main explanation in today's class, which will be Saha Ayam Atma Chatushpad. So that's where we'll be spending the most of the time. But before we do that, one very interesting thing to see. So another way to look at this, there's several ways to look at this. So one of them is really just look at two different aspects of it. So one is the Mahavakya. The Mahavakya, a sentence which is Maha, meaning that there is no better sentence in the whole creation. Sentence in the name of an equation, there is nothing like that, because it really removes all of your sense of limitations if the sentence is understood. So we'll get a little brief understanding of what the sentence means. So this is one aspect of it. So there, Ayam Atma Brahma. This is a sentence. This is the Mahavakya. So in the Atharva Veda, the Vakya here is Ayam Atma Brahma, which is very equivalent to in the Yajur Veda, which is Tat Tvamasi. Same thing. All these major sentences, and there are these sentences are throughout the Vedas. These have become just very famous, but all over there are these equations. So the equation is one thing that we will comment on today. So pay some attention to that. The second way to look at that is what is called Paroksha Jnanam and Aparoksha Jnanam. And both of them are related. So if you recall at the very beginning of these classes on Mandukya Upanishad, I just want to remind you that we talked about Denver. So the knowledge of Denver as a town, you can call it as a Paroksha Jnanam. Paroksha Jnanam. And then when you go and visit it and you live there for a week or two and you see all the major sites, you have a pretty good hang of the town, how many, parks are there and what are things to visit, then it becomes an Aparoksha Jnanam. Okay? So here, Swami Maheswaranji had given a beautiful example. I've not seen a better example than this. So lovely. He said, suppose you are standing and you see a person walking towards you from the distance, maybe 200 yards. Now, when you see the person, you see that there is a person walking. No question about that. And in fact, you can say this is a human being. It's not a four-legged animal because it's standing straight and is walking. So you know very well it's a person. So in some ways, you will see that this is Paroksha Jnanam. It's Jnanam. It's knowledge, all right, but it is Paroksha Jnanam. Then when the person comes close by, you recognize that this is your friend. such and such. At that time, the paroksha jnanam becomes aparoksha jnanam. And one of the differences between the two are, some of the differences, lots of differences, that some of the general qualities of the person are known to you. That the person is a human being, known to you. So it's not as though it is complete ajnanam. Your eyes are seeing the person, and you can distinguish that this is a human being, not an animal. You can even perhaps see whether it's a man or a woman. You can even see that from the clothes and the general body structure or whatever. You can even know that. So there's probably more information that you have. But you do not yet recognize that this is this person. That you don't recognize. Once you do that, then in your mind, a great deal of knowledge and memory and recognition springs up. Because now you know, oh my goodness, that is nothing, that is such and such person. Oh wow. Then you realize that he is coming to visit you. You didn't know that. And so now you have much more information. Your familiarity with the person all springs up. Because so you see, here's the thing. Look at this. This is very close to the Mahavakya also, actually, this example. That you have a friend who you know very well. And you've been friends for a long time, you have coffee together, whatever. You are a good friend, one of your good friends. But the presence of the good friend is not here. Is somewhere in your memory. It's, we don't know where that person is. So now you have two things. One is you have a good knowledge about your friend, but the friend is paroksha, is not there. Then you have a presence of a human being right in front of you, but you don't associate that person with your friend. It's just some general human being. But what happens is, through the proximity, you can now put those things together, that this person is not an ordinary person that I don't know. This person is that person. So all of a sudden, this becomes a paroksha jnana. Beautiful example. Very nice example. And of course, the traditional example given about the Mahavakya is Tattvamasi. And the real life example is Saha ayam devadattaha. So this is the example given in our Shastra. Soyam devadattaha. Soyam saha ayam devadattaha. So here the example given is that suppose you knew someone who was relatively young, in his mid-30s perhaps, and he was doing very well. He was already had made a lot of money and was the leader of some company, and very healthy and young and so on and so forth. And you knew him 20 years ago as that person. And then you see him in, here Swami Maheshananji had given this example, I remember that. So you knew him in Mumbai, which is a bustling town, and the young man was very active and successful and so on. Now you happen to be in a temple in Varanasi. You are just doing some pujas and so on and so forth. And there is a person sitting in the hall with you, close by, who's disheveled, he's got a long beard and white hair and so on and so forth, 54 years old, and disheveled, had lost and really emaciated. He doesn't have much weight on his body and so on and so forth, and has a very dour expression and so on and so forth. So the person sitting next to you, and he tells Swamiji, Swamiji, you know who that person is? And he says, I don't know. Do you remember Devadatta in Mumbai? He says, yes, that is that person. That is the person. And so, a very successful, healthy young person is now, whatever has brought him to this situation, is really a sad-looking person who's just trying to do some puja and so on and so forth. It's the same people. So this is the equation, which is tantamount to saying Tattvamasi. So now look at it. So another way of looking at these two verses, first verse and second verse, is Abhidhana Abhidheya, as we talked about it, name and the vastu. Another one is Paroksha and Aparoksha. That the first verse is Paroksha. If you understand, we don't even know the content of the first verse. That Sarvam Omkara Eva Yad Bhutam Bhavishyatiti. We are just getting an introduction. That everything that you see is Omkara. And we kind of listen to it. Everything that we see, what has ever happened, what is going on, what is going to happen is nothing but Omkara Eva. It doesn't quite register in my mind. It's not as though I don't agree with it, but okay, all right, I understand that this is all Omkara. Okay, you've just given it a name. And so, another way of looking at that is that this is kind of like a paroksha jnanam. So look at it this way. So paroksha jnanam means that even after you have analyzed the content of the first verse, Om ityetad akshara idagum sarvam tasya upavyakhyanam bhutam bhavat bhavishyatiti sarvam omkara eva yaccha anyat trikalatitam tadapi omkara eva. So you know some knowledge. So this is very much like knowing that the person that you are seeing is a human being. You don't recognize that the person that you see is really your friend. And if you see that this is your friend, an enormously different recognition comes up. Because when you see the other person as a person, then some things are okay, as I mentioned before. But nothing like all of a sudden the vision of this person being nothing but your own friend. That doesn't happen. So similarly here also, you see Omkara and you accept it. It's kind of like seeing a person. But what then happens is, in the explanation of this, is that this is introduced to you. Omkara is not only Brahman. And so really one thing you can say is that even the Brahman, which is an Abhidheya, the first one is Omkara, which is Abhidhana, which is a name. And then really speaking, when you say Sarvam Omkara Eva, and Sarvam means it is Brahman. And so when Abhidheya is talked about, Sarvam hi etad Brahma. So at that person, that part also, it is only a Paroksha Jnanam, that it is just Brahman. And Brahman means that you know that one who is everything, one who is the basis of everything, one who is everlasting, one who is very powerful, is Sarvashaktiman, Sarvagya, who is the very in Nimitta Upadana Karanam, Ishvara. Brahman means Ishvara. So, Sarvam hi etad Brahman. All that you see is nothing but Brahman. This is the specialty, in fact, of Vedanta. You should know this by now. That really